Chapter 276, The Earthboard Testing Palace. This chapter is updated by Novels.pl. Why don't you make your way to the Earthboard Testing Palace now? I'll go get the treasure and join you right away. The dazzling light that shone on Lei Jing's body turned into a light column. He thrust against the ground and disappeared into the silver-gowned Elder Hall. Zhang Yuochen left the hall and went to the Earthboard Testing Palace. The Earthboard was large enough to cover the entire eastern region. It was a vast territory that stretched across millions of kilometers. There were several thousand warriors from different commanderies, so it was impossible for the warriors to all gather together and compete with their martial techniques. Therefore, the regulations for entering the Earthboard were different from the Yellow Board and the Profound Board. This was why the testing palace was set up. They tested the warriors' abilities, and the overall results would determine their warriors' ranking on the Earthboard. When Zhang Yuochen arrived at the testing palace, there were 3 warriors waiting outside. One of them was a 17 to 18-year-old teenage girl in a snow-white martial robe. She was like an enchanting fairy in a painting, displaying elegance and a pure temperament. It was Luo Shuaihan. The other 2 warriors were Zhu Qingshan and Tu Jin, from the Tai King Palace and the God Blood School respectively. The Tai King Palace was classified as a 4th-class suzerain. Its power was more or less the same as the Yantai suzerain. They were the 2 dominators that ruled over the 36 commanderies of the Omen Ridge. The power of the Tai King Palace was centralized in the southern 9 prefectures and didn't cause any conflict of interest with the Yantai suzerain. The God Blood School, on the other hand, had over 100,000 disciples. It was a 5th-class suzerain and was slightly inferior to the Tai King Palace and the Yantai suzerain. Their major power was centered in the northern 9 prefectures and they were one of the more powerful parties in the Omen Ridge. Zhu Qingshan and Tu Jin were in their 30s and they were the top geniuses of their schools. Moreover, they had just broken through the 3rd level of the Juju Tower and become 3-realm fighting geniuses. This was their time to shine, so they had decided to come to the testing palace. They were ready to enter the Earthboard. As long as their names were put up on the Earthboard, they would become famous in the Omen Ridge and enjoy status equal to the 10 prodigies of Omen Ridge. A tree developed a shadow while a human blossomed with fame. Who wouldn't want to be famous? Arriving at the testing palace, Zhu Qingshan and Tu Jin saw the beautiful Luo Shuaihan. They were attracted by her elegant temperament and couldn't stop staring at her. Perhaps she already possessed the ability to enter the Earthboard, but she was so young. In the 36 commanderies of the Omen Ridge there were only 2 girls who had entered the Earthboard. However, even the youngest, Hanku, was over 20 years old. The girl in front of them definitely hadn't reached 20 yet. Zhu Qingshan walked over politely. He bowed slightly and said, "I'm Zhu Qingshan from the Tai King Palace. You're as pretty as a fairy and you have an elegant temperament that attracts me. By the looks of your martial robe, you are one of the students from the School of the Martial Market." Seeing Zhu Qingshan talking to her, Tu Jin also walked over and said, "I'm Tu Jin from the God Blood School. I've just passed the 3rd level of the Juju Tower. I wonder, have you been to the Juju Tower before?" Zhu Qingshan stared at Tu Jin unpleasantly and sneered, "It's nothing to show off. I've also advanced to the 3rd level of the Juju Tower." Tu Jin replied, "Well, just because you've passed the 3rd level of the Juju Tower, it doesn't mean that you can enter the Earthboard. Dearest fairy, I'm guessing you're not even 20 years old. Do you want to leave your name on the Earthboard too?" Zhu Qingshan laughed. "Tu Jin, what are you asking? Are you questioning the fairy's ability?" The 2 had wanted to strike up a conversation with her and yet they had started arguing. The gentlemanly character they pursued had vanished without a trace. They appeared to be about to start a fight. Luo Shuaihan stood aside as quiet as water. She looked comfortable and showed no emotional fluctuation. Zhang Yuochen walked up the stairs and saw Zhu Qingshan and Tu Jin arguing. He was confused. He walked towards Luo Shuaihan and said, "Long time no see. Senior sister disciple Luo." Luo Shuaihan glanced at Zhang Yuochen. She exposed a pure smile and said with a sweet voice, "Junior fellow apprentice Zhang is indeed elite of man. I heard about your fight with Kulin. I assumed you would come to the testing palace soon." Zhang Yuochen laughed. It was only a dispute caused by feelings between Kulin and myself. It's incomparable with senior sister apprentice's peaceful mind. Luo Shuaihan's eyes were as bright as stars. She studied Zhang Yuochen carefully from head to toe. Suddenly, she revealed a shocked expression. You've already practiced the Heart of the Sword and reached the realm of Heart integrated into Sword. Zhang Yuochen was surprised that she recognized something that even Lei Jing hadn't noticed. She was indeed incredible. Perhaps she possessed a special kind of saint sight or even a saintly being. The descendants of saints all had holy blood flowing through their bodies. Although it was thin, it made them more sensitive. Some of the descendants with extremely high talent could even awake special scent abilities, or extraordinary physical qualities. Like Luo Shuaihan. If she hadn't awakened some sort of special sight or physical quality, she wouldn't have been able to tell that Zhang Yuochen had reached the realm of Heart integrated into Sword. Zhang Yuochen gazed into her eyes and asked, Senior Sister Apprentice, I'm guessing you've awakened some kind of special sight? Luo Shuaihan was shocked. She smiled gently and said, Come to my practicing mansion when the test is over. We can discuss it then. Luo Shuaihan glanced at Zhu Qingshan and Tujin nearby and signaled that this was not a good place to speak. Zhang Yuochen understood. It would be my pleasure to discuss martial arts with senior sister apprentice. Zhang Yuochen and Luo Shuaihan had been communicating through sound waves, so Zhu Qingshan and Tujin weren't able to hear what they said. But they clearly knew that Zhang Yuochen and Luo Shuaihan were having a great time. While they were arguing, a teenager had taken advantage of the situation and talked to Luo Shuaihan. They couldn't stand it. When and where did you come from, kid? How can you just talk to the fairy when you arrived last? Tujin sneered. Zhu Qingshan also had a cold expression. He said, I suggest you leave her alone, kid. Why? Zhang Yuochen was confused. What does talking to my senior sister apprentice have to do with you guys? Senior sister apprentice? Haha. You said that just because she is a beautiful student of the School of the Martial Market. Tujin laughed out loud. This is the Earthboard Testing Palace, kid. It's not a place for you. Tujin and Zhu Qingshan didn't think that Zhang Yuochen was here for the test. He was too young. He didn't look like a master of the Earthboard. Zhang Yuochen exclaimed, Why shouldn't I be here? You're here to test your ability. There was a sense of contempt in Zhu Qingshan's eyes. He showed no respect for Zhang Yuochen. That's right. Zhang Yuochen replied defiantly. Tujin and Zhu Qingshan started laughing hysterically. Lei Jing's voice rang in Zhang Yuochen's ears, You don't need to argue with them. You can come in and test your power. Master Lei has already entered the testing palace. Zhang Yuochen was shocked. He had arrived at the Earthboard testing palace earlier than Lei Jing and hadn't seen him waiting outside. Yet, he was already in the testing palace. When had he entered the palace? The difference between their martial cultivation was way too big. Senior sister disciple Luo, we can go in now. Zhang Yuochen glanced at Luo Shuaihan, and she nodded. She walked towards the door of the testing palace with Zhang Yuochen. I can't believe that the kid is really here testing his ability. Perhaps he has obtained the ability of the Earthboard. Zhu Qingshan revealed a puzzled look. How could it be? Tujin shook his head and exclaimed, How many Earthboard warriors can there be in the 36 commanderies of the Omen Ridge? If he enters the Earthboard, I will write my name backwards. Zhu Qingshan nodded in agreement. There were only a handful of young top masters in the entire 36 commanderies. Moreover, most of them gathered around the Devil Martial City and all knew each other well. How could a teenage master of the Earthboard suddenly emerge? It only made sense for famous masters like Zhu Qingshan and Tujin to enter the Earthboard. When we enter later, we have to show that kid what the real ability of an Earthboard master is. What do you think, Brother Zhu? Tujin said. Zhu Qingshan laughed. You have a point. Even though they'd been hostile toward each other at first, with the appearance of Zhang Ruojin they now felt like brothers. There were 3 tests to conduct in order to enter the Earthboard: power, speed, and actual combat. Walking into the testing palace, Zhang Yuochen and Luo Shuaihan arrived at the power testing secret room. Tujin and Zhu Qingshan also walked into the secret room, full of confidence. In their eyes, they were the 2 leading roles today. Zhang Yuochen and Luo Shuaihan were too young to come here and they were here just for fun. Just as the power test was about to start, Lei Jing walked in from the side door. The silver-gowned elder who was responsible for the power test was scared when he saw Lei Jing. He stood up right away, walked towards Lei Jing and saluted him with courtesy. Tu Jin and Zhu Qingshan were shocked to see this. All silver-gowned elders from the school of the martial market possessed a martial cultivation of the heaven realm. Who could that person be to require a heaven realm warrior to bow and salute? He must be some big shot from the school of the martial market. I can't believe the school is treating us with this level of seriousness. Tu Jin was excited. In contrast, Zhu Qingshan looked calm and peaceful. He smiled and said, anyhow, we're the top geniuses. We've already passed the 3rd level of the Juju Tower. We should be treated with respect and seriousness coming to the testing ground. Perhaps the important person is going to invite us to join the school of the martial market. I bet you're right. Tu Jin nodded. He glanced at Zhang Yuochen with a look of disdain and superiority. From his point of view, even the school of the martial market paid great attention to him. There was nothing better than gaining face like this. As for the girl who was as beautiful as a fairy in a painting, he assumed she would fall into his arms with a flick of the finger once he became an Earthboard master.